Hey, welcome into This Week in Indiana Football. I'm your host, John Alden, a.k.a. John the Producer. Alongside with me, as always, Dustin Schutte from Outsider.com, the former walk-on turned scholarship superstar Mitchell Page, and Joe, the law firm Lincoln. I believe we're calling him the law firm now. At least that seems to be the name that was adopted to him by some of our listeners that I saw commenting on our last episode.
Oh, so good.
Glad to have everybody along here to talk about Indiana's 2-0 start after getting a 35-22 victory over Idaho, which started off looking like a disaster in the first half, down 10-0, and a torrential downpour ended up being more or less what it should have been in the second half. I'm curious what the outcome would have been if they would have played a full 40 minutes, but that's what we're here to discuss. Indiana's got another big game coming up this week against Western Kentucky to try to get to 3-0 before they play Cincinnati on the road. But I guess we'll go ahead and start off with our thoughts on the Idaho game. I shared my opening statement, but who wants to? Well, let's go with Mitch, the former Hoosier. What are your initial? I'm sure you and I were talking back and forth a lot during that game, but what is your initial reaction from the result of that game?
Yeah, obviously what you were looking for in the second half. It was exciting to see some tempo and then building off of some momentum. The offense and the defense were playing off of each other for the first time this year, and what feels like maybe the first time since 2020, where the defense was getting stops and the offense was scoring touchdowns. And that's the way you put teams away like that. Obviously, the first half is – we can talk all night about it, whether you want to talk about the weather, you want to talk about not being prepared. Can't have halves like that. That had to be my opinion is that was the worst half of a Big Ten or of a Tom Allen coached Indiana team. So can't have halves like that. Hopefully they learn a lot from it because Western Kentucky's a little different beast than Idaho.
Yeah, I think I was disappointed with how they came out of that game. And like you said, you can blame it on the weather. I don't know that they were focused. I think that they were looking at what happened last year in that game, winning that game by like 100 points, not taking this game too seriously. That's what it seemed like Tom Allen was kind of alluding to. They lost focus. They had 2 turnovers, missed a couple kicks. At the very least, should have at least had some sort of lead at halftime or had an opportunity to have some leads at halftime and then really extend upon that in the second half. But I think what we saw in both of these first 2 games was when their back was up against the wall, they answered a little bit more dominantly this week against Idaho than in the first week against Illinois. They came out, they did what they had to do. They took care of business. They ran the ball effectively, 6.5 yards per carry, 155 yards from Sean Shivers. They got some guys involved in those quick passes. They got the slant game going. A lot of different things, and I'm really impressed with Connor Bazelak's poise. I think I've said this on Jim's show a couple times. I think he could go 0 for 25 and still go out and have the ball at his own 1-yard line and think he's going to drive the ball 99 yards. And I don't know if it was Nate Sudfeld or Richard Lego or whoever it was. It's been a while since Indiana's had a quarterback that, in my opinion, had that type of poise and confidence in himself. So I think even though it was ugly, first 2 games have really been kind of ugly. We're learning a little bit more about this team. There's a little bit more resiliency and fight there than what we saw from them last year.
Definitely. Joe, what was the outlook from the I keep wanting to call you like our sideline reporter because obviously you're usually there at the games.
Well, I mean, this week I was actually on the sideline.
I'm ended up saying the same thing that I say every time, and I don't want to say it, so I was trying to work my way around it.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I was actually on the sideline this week taking photos for the game, so I was pretty up close and personal with it. I mean, it was the same thing you saw on TV. Very lazy first half. I mean, just an unbelievable first half. Missed opportunities left and right. I mean, building off of nothing. I mean, defense was barely there, and it just very disappointing. And I mean, it sucked all the air out of that stadium, which sucks because it's really great whenever that place is, pumping. It's just like a different feel. And, the second half, as soon as they started scoring those touchdowns, it just all the air came back in and the students got back into it, regardless of the rain and whatever was coming down. I mean, again, shirtless section was there. I think we need to get a tally on how many times that happens this season. Hopefully it's every game because it's electric every time it happens.
Are we 2 for 2?
Yeah, we're 2 for 2.
Okay,
so,
okay.
Yeah. So hopefully that trend continues. But, team-wise, I think something to talk about was, building off of momentum in the second half. As soon as they got that first touchdown, there was no looking back. It was what? Every drive they had in the second half was a score, and the defense felt that too up until those last 2 touchdowns, which really I don't know what those were, to be honest. It was really, really bad, and I think that's what Tom Allen addressed post-game. He said, those last 2 touchdowns, if Idaho hadn't scored on those possessions, I would have been a lot happier with the game, but our defense just kind of looked bad on those last couple drives for him. So, there's definitely things to take from this game, good and bad, but I think IU's going to take the win and try and move on into WKU.
Well,
before we got started with the show,
I'm going to jump in really quick and just say that I didn't see those last 2 touchdowns because going through 14 Big Ten games. But the one thing that stood out to me, Joe, that he said was not just that they gave up the touchdowns, but that it came against their 2 best defensive players. And so when you expect those guys to be leaders and they are not taking the full 60 minutes seriously, I think he wants more leadership on the field for a full 60 minutes. That's just that's what I took away from that post game is he was pissed that they got the touchdowns, but for it to come against their 2 best players, he just thinks it's a lack of focus is I think a big talking point as to why he was so frustrated.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were discussing before we started the podcast about, obviously they were down 10-0 going into the half. And during the post-game pressers, Joe was saying that you could easily tell that Tom Allen had lost his voice. And that's something, it's not necessarily something that is uncommon. But when you think about what was going on going into halftime and what had to happen for Indiana to get to where they were at the end of the game, I would have really loved to be in that locker room to see Tom Allen give a legitimately pissed off speech, because it seems like anytime they always show Tom Allen on the social media accounts and stuff like that, it's, all this uppity up cinematic type of, the stuff that you would see in heck, I'm blanking on the movie I'm thinking of.
Remember the Titans?
Honestly, any football movie, football movie with an inspirational speaking head coach, it doesn't matter which one it is. That's what they always try to show Tom. They're not going to show Tom, and I don't know if Tom Allen was cussing out his players or anything like that, but they're not going to show him doing that kind of stuff, I wouldn't think. But I really wish that we could have gotten, based on the result, like it would have been one thing if he gave that whatever rousing type of speech at halftime and nothing changed. But they came out and scored 5 touchdowns back-to-back to start the second half. So something worked in that locker room that we didn't get to see.
Yeah, I think it was a good exercise. And not everything's going to go smoothly in a Big Ten game. Hopefully they don't go as bad as they did in the first half, because that speech will have to be – I don't know what the speech will have to be, because they'll be down by 40 if they play like that against a Big Ten opponent. But it's a good lesson in adjusting, in going in at halftime and refocusing and really paying attention to what's kind of happening, and don't just let plays pass you by, how valuable each play is, even when it is pouring down rain. I can firsthand experience. I know as a player, when you go out and it's just a monsoon and there's no one in the game, because why would they be? It's a monsoon. Definitely don't blame any of them, fans, for not being at the stadium. I'm sorry if you guys can hear that playing in the background. But it's deflating. It's hard to kind of regroup and focus on what you're doing when everything is wet, the ball's heavy, everything is a little bit slower. It's harder to get out to a good start, and it's a good lesson because they're going to get some adversity in a really backloaded schedule. And if they want to get back to bowl eligibility, they're going to have to face that and do what they did against Idaho.
As much as I don't want to blame the entire game, or at least the entire first half, on the torrential downpour, and this is obviously just gut instinct and not based on any factual information, because I've said before, facts are optional. That may or may not be a good mantra to live by, but it's okay in some form or fashion sometimes. But Indiana may not have scored 60 or 70 had the weather conditions been perfect. I'm not saying they would have done 35 in both halves, but you have to be, if you're going to be an elite team, it doesn't matter what the weather conditions are. Obviously, Indiana's not going to be an elite team right now, but I don't think if the weather would have been normal, it wouldn't have been 10-0 Indiana or Idaho at halftime. Again, that really doesn't matter. I'm just speculating based on what my expectations kind of were once I realized it was going to be a rainy type of game. I had a buddy of mine who I'm not going to say his name, obviously, but he's kind of a degenerate gambler. And he messaged me before the game, and he asked, is it Connor Bazelak? No, it's not anybody that comes on Jim's show. But he asked if Connor Bazelak was going to throw for, I don't know, X amount of yards. And I said I would think so, but the weather's not looking really good. And with what we knew about Indiana's run game going into the Idaho game, I was legitimately worried that there was going to be a tough time in weather conditions, poor weather conditions, to get the offense going. And that's exactly what we saw. Because when it's raining, you're not going to have much of a pass game in general. And when you already have that struggling run game, which Indiana rectified throughout this game against Idaho.
Yeah.
I was kind of foreseeing issues. I didn't think they'd be down 10-0, but at the same time, I didn't think it would have been as bad had the weather, tapered off. And that's
you see, but Idaho had to put up with the same conditions, and they hit some deep passes in that first half. So what's the? And
that's true. Go ahead.
That to me is what stands out. I'm not saying weather can't be a factor, but it's not like Idaho had a different type of environment when they had the ball as opposed to when Indiana had the ball. So that to me, like I don't want to say it's a moot point, but you got to figure out ways to if that really was the concern. You got to figure out a way to tough through that because everybody's dealing with the same circumstance. And Idaho found a way to move the football on the ground and through the air. I mean, they hit a deep pass. They have was it 60 or 70 yards? I mean, and that was a beautiful ball. I just don't think Connor Bazelak was. I don't know if he wasn't dialed in or he wasn't focused or what it was, but he was. I don't think it was because of weather that he was playing poorly. I just don't think he was ready in that first half to go. I don't know how else to say.
Here's an argument against that, though. And I told somebody else this earlier today, and that's why I want to bring it up again. Idaho has absolutely nothing to lose in a game like that. They're going to come in with no pressure. They're going to come in and just do what they want to do. They probably wanted it to rain because they know that that's not going to play to Indiana's advantage. And obviously, Idaho doesn't. I mean, maybe internally they think they can come in and get the upset, and that's part of the belief that they were able to build up throughout that first half. But whenever nothing is going the home team's way, who is an astronomical favorite, it makes sense for the opposing team that has no business being in a game like that to do well because nothing's going right for who they're playing. I hope that makes sense. But
yeah, I wanna step in because in a game like that, if you're Idaho, you kind of need perfect conditions. Because you need some crazy things to go right for you. You need to hit on long passes. You need to have them throw it to you. If you're getting into a rain game like that, and I think what was so disappointing to me, outside of the inaccuracy from Connor Bazelak that now we've seen 2 weeks in a row, unfortunately, hopefully something he's going to fine-tune in practice because we're going to need him to be extremely accurate on Saturday. So more so than the inaccuracies, in a game like that, a team from the Big Ten should be able to run the ball for 8 yards a pop against an FCS opponent, especially an FCS opponent that's not North Dakota State. It's not someone that's each year in the Final Four of the FCS because those teams have big guys. They're good teams. That's not a pushover team. We talked about that when some of the Big Ten teams were playing South Dakota and North Dakota State every year. I feel like Idaho or Iowa plays. When you're playing a team like Idaho, if it rains like that, you should be able to line up in 2 tight ends with a 1-back lineup, hand the ball off tackle, and get 6 to 8 yards a pop just because you're bigger. And Indiana did not do that, and I think that was one of the most disappointing things about the first half is we're bigger. Just be bigger. Don't try to out-technique anyone. Just be bigger than them. And we went away from that a little bit and tried to get Bazelak in a rhythm, and it never really happened. And I think that's why it was so ugly. And then on the other side, Idaho gets feeling pretty good because they're stopping Indiana, and now all the momentum's on their side. There's so much that goes into it. If you can just physically dominate someone at the line, that's a completely different game. And Indiana kind of gave up their chance to do that early on, I thought.
Yeah, I think there's it's more concerning than I wanted it to be after week 2, for sure. I wanted to be able to say we're going into the WKU game with a dominant win under our belt, and we don't really have to worry that much about what the play is going to be, but there are still a lot of concerns. There were some good things, but it puts a ton of pressure on this game 3, especially considering what you're going into after game 3. That's going to Cincinnati and then coming back and playing a full Big Ten slate after that. You don't have a break after WKU. So this game is very crucial for IU to really put it all together, put all those things that they did well in those first 2 weeks into one game. And that's one game that you have to do that. That's a lot of pressure. It is at home, and it is against Western Kentucky, who, they're not a team that's going to really surprise anybody. We kind of know what they've got under their belt. So I think IU just has to, practice to the best of their ability this week, and they need to hope that they come out on Saturday and impress a lot of people. It doesn't have to be like an absolute dominating game, but they have to do everything together as a team, well. There's got to be good defense, good run game, good pass game. It's just a complete game. That's what I'm trying to say here. That's what a lot of fans are looking for, and I think Tom Allen is really looking for that too. So I think that should be the goal on Saturday, is just to have a complete game as a team.
Yeah, because obviously WKU, Indiana is very familiar, not even just from the past 2 years, but they've played several times over the past. I mean, Mitchell, you played against WKU, right?
Yes. Yeah, and it's funny. It doesn't matter who is on their team. It feels like they're the same exact team. That was funny that we know what they are. They are going to be extremely explosive on offense, and they're going to give up some plays on defense. I think their defense is actually pretty tough this year, but they're always going to be explosive, and they're always going to challenge your secondary. Fortunately for Indiana, that's, I think, a strength of their team. I'm not sure that we've seen it yet. But, yeah, it's Western Kentucky, that's not somebody that I think anybody's going to overlook with the run that they've had over the past couple of years and the success that they've seen, especially on offense.
When you consider the fact that, they had Indiana on the ropes last year. Now, obviously, the circumstances of a lot of things were going wrong. Indiana's season was already spiraling out of control at that point, and it was a road game. Was a
phenomenal win. Even if Indiana went on 4, that was a phenomenal win. And Jim, before we want to talk about Jim's show, I went on Jim's show after that, and he was ripping me. It's like, it's Western Kentucky. I thought that was as good a win as they've had in 5 years. Going in there, it's an uncomfortable environment, being the big boy, going into that kind of environment, going and winning against the nation's leading passer all time. That's a fantastic win. And to do it again this week, even if it is at home, that's another fantastic win. I'm not going to give away who I'm going to pick, but it's one that's a little bit nervy for Indiana fans.
And our quarterback is – or not our quarterback, WKU's quarterback. It's not the same. It's not Bailey Zappi from last year, but it is a Division II national champion from what I've read. I can't think of his name at the moment, though, for some reason.
They just reload, and he's got like 70% completion percentage. He's got 7 touchdowns already, maybe no interceptions. They're going to come in with firepower, just like they always do. I bet there's more offensive guys in the NFL from Western Kentucky than there are from Indiana. If I had to bet.
Yeah. They got – I was going to say Austin Reed. He's got 551 yards, 7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions through 2 games. They're 2-0.
They had a bye week this past week, just to clarify. They didn't play this week.
Yeah.
They had Austin P in week 0, and then they played Hawaii in week 1.
Yeah. And they beat the brakes off of both of them, didn't they? Austin P.
Yeah.
Austin P is pretty good.
Austin P was a game. That was a game.
Yeah.
Hawaii not so much.
Hawaii's been getting blasted by everybody.
Yes.
Because even Vanderbilt went down and put 63 points on them or something like that. But
yes.
Yeah.
By the way, did anybody watch that Michigan-Hawaii game?
No.
I knew it was delayed. It was on the same time as Indiana, so I didn't really check out Michigan and Hawaii.
I mean, I don't know if we're going to talk about any other teams or anything else today, but I just want to say, in case we don't, the Big Ten may have a Heisman contender, and it may not be C.J. Stroud. J.J. McCarthy.
No, maybe J.J. McCarthy from what I've seen.
That dude is I don't know how he didn't win the starting job last year. That dude is incredible. Carry on.
You think he's going to be did he win the job? Is he going to be the starter?
Yeah, Harbaugh said after that game, J.J. is going to be the starter moving forward.
Okay.
I mean, he was like 11 of 12 for 200 and some yards, threw, I think, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and he throws a really good ball.
Yeah, and Michigan has started to be able to run the ball with the best in the country, and that makes it so much easier to play quarterback. when you got big boys up front and you got running backs in the stable and you can just get your feet set and start picking people apart. They're a force to be reckoned with, unfortunately.
Before we move into our new segment, new as of last week, our message board comments of other Big Ten teams that played this past weekend and some of the national opponents. Dustin, I meant to ask you this at the beginning of the show, but because I'm so bad at intros, I forgot. I'll eventually get this intro thing down. But you were in Gainesville this past weekend for Florida versus Kentucky. How was that?
It was awesome. The environment was really cool. It was a night game. It was, I mean, everything you want to imagine of a big-time college football atmosphere. It was the first time I've been – when I started at Saturday Tradition in 2016, I've covered only 2 games live, and this was my first game as a fan since, 2014 or 15. So it had been a while. So it was nice to just go in there, soak it all in, have a few beers before the game. And then it was just all the tradition, 90,000 people. It's one of the loudest stadiums I've been in. And I've been to Tiger Stadium, Death Valley. Yeah. I've been to a couple different stadiums, but that was by far, it was like my ears were ringing during that game. And it was just a really cool experience. The game, it was a close game, so it was loud for most of it. But the football wasn't the best, especially Florida. Florida's offense it's Indiana 2021 bad.
Oh, God. Oh, that's not good. How many times did you gator chomp?
I did not gator chomp at all, but I did turn on my flashlight. I did gator chomp. Right. I turned on my flashlight for the Tom Petty won't back down between the third and fourth quarter.
And you were gator chomping every play. I already know you wearing your Florida hat every day.
I did. I was wearing a Florida hat. I had my Florida shirt on. I'm waiting for the Florida-Miami game, Mitchell.
Yeah, it's going to be a blowout. Florida's got no chance.
I don't even know if they play this year, but you know.
No, they don't. They don't play for like a couple years, which is sad because that's a great rivalry. But Joe, sorry, I cut you off.
No, you're good. I just wanted to say something about, if Florida's offense is really as bad as Dustin's saying, then week 1 doesn't mean anything because Anthony Richardson was getting Heisman votes out the wazoo after week 1. And then he just goes out to Kentucky and lays a giant egg. That's hilarious. That's hysterical.
He was 14 of 30. He was 14 of 35, no touchdowns, 2 picks. I think he had 4 yards on 6 carries or 6 yards on 4 carries. Utah's defense is garbage. First of all, he had no running lanes. He threw it on a screen pass, on a bubble screen pass. He threw a pick 6. I mean, I think I could have at least got it incomplete. I But I mean,
that's such bad blocking.
It was terrible blocking. There was no offense.
How do you get that bad at receiver to where I assume has to come inside? That has to be untouched. Because a bubble, correct. I mean, the bubble should be quarterback to receiver from time that it's snapped to receiver in like a second. That's such bad blocking.
They show those clips of like people on ESPN and Fox of like they can't believe like the surrender cobra and their mouth is open. That was me. Yes. And I had no rooting interest in the game. I was just shocked that somebody jumped the pass that quickly and scored that I was stunned by it. I could not believe that I had witnessed that play.
Well, one more thing that I almost forgot that we can't fail to mention based on who we have sitting with us, Joe the law firm. I think we have to reach out and ask for if he is okay, if things are going to be all right, because his Notre Dame Fighting Irish lost to the Marshall Thundering Herd over the weekend.
They stink. They're terrible.
I'm not going to disagree with you, Mitchell. The proof's in the pudding, and the pudding tastes terrible. It was the worst Notre Dame football game I have watched in. It was, if anyone remembers this game, it was Tulsa in like 2009, 10 or something like that. And they got absolutely crushed. And
how about when they went down to South Florida? Speaking of Miami.
Oh yeah, no, that was pretty bad one too. But
that was great for me.
That was a worthy opponent. This is a team that shouldn't even be running with Notre Dame. So yeah, no. And now Tyler Buckner is out for the year, so they're down a starting quarterback. I don't know. So I don't know. Marshall literally dominated every facet of that game. So there was no bright spot, and I'm concerned. Let's put that out there.
Well,
here's one thing we have to admire. Go ahead.
Your boy is 0-3. Marcus Freeman, first coach in Notre Dame history.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Loses first three.
No, it's not good.
Even though Indiana fans were pissed off about the way that the game started, we have to realize one thing, that a lot of teams started fires in their game and couldn't get them put out, and they burned the house down. Indiana put out their fire in the second half.
Winning is hard. I don't care who it is. Winning is hard. I always forget that. We always forget that. But when you're in the trenches, winning is so hard, and we look past it so much. I mean, we could easily be sitting here 0-2.
Oh yeah,
things would have not.
And we're talking about, and we won't go down this road. What would, I mean, would we be talking? Like I said, we're not going to go down this road, but I am going to mention it once. But would we be talking about Tom Allen being fired right now if they were 0-2?
No.
Yes.
No.
With a loss to Idaho.
If they lost to Idaho?
No.
And I'm not saying it's like Scott Frost middle of the season, but like I'm talking like,
will we be talking about the aspect of him being fired, or would he have been fired?
No, the aspect of we're heading towards that by the end of the season.
Yes.
Kind of.
I think that conversation is being had.
It would have been hot.
By the end of the season?
Yeah. It would have been warm.
It would have been warm, but I think he would have gotten 2023. He would have gotten to next season.
Yeah, I think his buyout's probably at the moment because he got that extension right after 2020, so it can't be easy to get rid of him anyway right now.
And as much as there are some diehard, Don Fisher said what he said. We have about 20,000 diehard IU fans, and then the rest are fair weather fans.
And that's very true. Based on who was there on Saturday.
The point those 20,000 are the best, though. That's a fact.
The point of that to me is somebody would, in an instant, you can find somebody to buy out Mike Woodson or Archie Miller. It's going to be a lot more difficult. They're not going to spend that money to buy out Tom Allen. I can promise you that. So that's why he would get 2023. Yeah. And then maybe at the end of that season or midway through, then I would see it. But it's not happening.
Indiana, they can't just go and look for whoever they want. They're going to have to genuinely, and we'll stop talking about it right after this, I promise. If this ever happens, they're going to have to look for their replacement. No one comes waltzing into Memorial Stadium wanting the Indiana job.
I do.
Unless you're Tom Allen.
Oh, please. I want to see this.
Mitchell Page for coach?
Yeah.
We'll give you a 6-game audition.
Yeah, whenever the vacancy comes due, hopefully it's 50 years from now, and we've got 45 Rose Bowl appearances, and we're just the greatest program of all time. This is me officially signing up to be all right. I'm throwing my name in the hat.
You'd be like a 70-year-old coach.
Head coach. I don't want to actually coach, just the head guy.
You just manage the coaches.
Yeah, and I also don't want to recruit. We have to have a coordinator that does that for me.
All right, with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to our message board segment. Last week, if you remember, those of you who were with us, we went through the previous week's Big Ten games and some of the national games by reading what some of their fans had to say either before, during, or after the game. And we're going to start with Rutgers, which this is the only long one that I'm going to read, but it's the very first one that I saw this week, and I had to share it. This is as Rutgers was preparing to take on Wagner. I'm going to have to clear my throat again, folks.
Can't take this
If
guy
only
anywhere.
we had a mute button.
I know. If only I could do my job and cough at the same time. All right. This is what the Church of Chop said on a Rutgers message board post. Let us all pray as we prepare for the Church of Chop as our Lord and Savior Greg Schiano and his Knights take on the Seahawks of Wagner. This past week, our Knights shipped up to Boston and shocked the Eagles with a triumphant 96-yard drive to victory. Today, we return to the ancient and blessed waters of the Raritan to continue our glorious quest of spreading the word, and we shall have no fear. Let Langan the brute smash through their snapping beaks. Let Monangai the mighty and Brother Crookshank streak past their soaring wings. Let Simon the Slinger and the Wizard Wimsit play steadfast and true. And let the righteous boot of the Aussie assassin, Brother Corsack, pin the non-believers far and deep. And let us not forget the one and only commandment, thou shalt chop.
I mean, that's college football is the best. Somebody sat down and made that, thought it all out. College football is the best. Imagine being a Rutgers fan right now, dude. You got a pretty solid squad up there.
That might be the most dedicated Rutgers football fan in history.
I was just going to say,
Hands down.
I get paid to write, and I would not be able to come up with anything even remotely close to what that guy came up with.
The Aussie assassin, Brother Corsack. That was probably my favorite part. The righteous boot.
This guy is like
Aussie assassin, Brother Corsack.
He's preparing for the Crusades. This is like the rallying cry for the whole like Rutgers football. I don't even know. What do you call like the fan base if that guy is the leader?
Chop Nation, probably, or the Church of Chop.
I guess, but like I feel like you would go with something more medieval.
Apparently it worked. The team must have read it before the game. They won 66-7.
I would love it. I would love it if that was secretly Greg Schiano.
Oh man!
All time.
What if he has that written in their locker room?
That's what I'm saying. Can you imagine? Like, he's like, some guy wrote this. I wrote this.
How many coaches do you think read the message boards
14?
And have burner accounts?
All 14? Can I say that?
Of the Big Ten?
Yes.
I think so.
I agree.
There's no way. Here's the thing. Every coach goes into those, we don't look at the papers. Well, then how the hell do you know? How do you know what people are saying? Because they always seem to know what people are saying, yet they never read. So I don't
think they go and read all this ignorant crap on message boards, though. They might read Twitter.
I think they have a message board account.
Here's the thing. Even the nicest college football coach has a pretty big ego. So if you're going to attack it, they're going to try to find it. That's my thought.
I couldn't be more. Well, I mean, we talked about – when did we talk about it? I can't remember. Never mind. But we talked – somebody in the program, like, reached out to – I can't remember what show it was, but they were talking about, like, IU such and such. But it wasn't even, like, accusing them. And someone from within the program reached out and said, hey, don't say that anymore. So they're listening. Yeah. Someone in the program is listening and reading, and you want to talk about egos, man. College football coaches got them worse than anybody, almost as bad as wide receivers. So they're definitely reading that stuff.
Well, moving on from the Church of Chop, we now head to the land of the Buckeyes, Ohio State, which they end up winning pretty handily against Arkansas State, as many would have expected. But I'm assuming this was pretty on early in the game. Here's a set of 4 comments. The other coach wants to win. Day has no clue how to run an offense. I don't know why Kevin Wilson sticks around when Bowman 2.0 is calling the plays.
Huh.
Is it just me, or does every team OSU plays have a better OC? And we have an offense that's designed to go sideways. Unbelievable.
How quickly people forget, man. I just I have nothing to say about that.
Weren't they their two best receivers were out, correct? Jackson Smith and Jigba did not play. And there was another one that was out, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if he was I can't remember who it was off the top of my head.
Correct.
So that makes a difference.
And we won't read the same types of comments every week. I'll get better at filtering once we kind of see the same old stuff, because we know that the elite fan bases are always going to be the nitpickiest of them all. And we got some really good ones coming up here later on, and I'm sure you can kind of guess where they might be coming from. But
this is what I'm saying, though. Imagine winning a game 45-12 and just being absolutely furious. Like,
stunning.
Oh, I loved the Miami one we talked about last week. They won 70-13.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah,
that was Mitchell.
Yeah,
that was secretly Mitchell.
Really have burner accounts all over the place. You guys just don't know. We'll never know the names of them.
Nope.
Here we go. This was Notre Dame. It was still tied at 0 with Marshall in the first quarter. Entire offense. Well, I can't even spell. I'll have to pronounce for them. Entire offensive staff should be replaced. Eliminate all BK era. I guess Brian Kelly. Tommy Rees is turning into a real problem for us. I'm sorry, this is a joke. Regardless how this game ends, this team has no sense of urgency. I'm already embarrassed. I think a lot of that's actually fairly justified.
It's fair.
This current time.
I just like how he said eliminate all of Brian Kelly era. It's just like they pretty much done that besides Tommy Rees.
Yeah.
But honestly, I've seen a lot of stuff talking about Tommy Rees like he wants to run a pro style offense with college football players, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I guess he can't really get away with that, but I don't know. It was pretty putrid, so that guy was kind of spot on.
Here's a couple more from Notre Dame. Clown school is fully in session. The Freeman era is over before it hardly started.
Wow. Talk about
Indy
a short
could have
leash.
had Luke Fickell.
No, they couldn't have.
I don't think so either.
Luke Fickell's going nowhere. Why would Luke Fickell leave? He's getting paid a bunch of cash. He's got good teams. No one really complains about him on message boards. Why would he want to go to a big program like Notre Dame or Oklahoma? Or
Notre Dame one that I found earlier that I'm looking for at the moment, but y'all keep going.
I was just going to say, I don't understand that either. I wouldn't.
No. Have you seen the connection to Nebraska? Somebody said something about Luke Fickell to Nebraska, and I almost spit out my drink. Like, why would you?
Yeah, I've heard somebody say they should go after Sean Payton. That's definitely not happening.
I saw that was on one of these message boards. Yep.
I mean, Urban Meyer is the name. I swear.
Here we go.
That would be the ultimate story. I hope.
One last Notre Dame comment. Freeman needs to be fired up on the sidelines. Couldn't count how many times something happened and the camera cut to him just chewing gum with a frown on his face. Buckner threw that pick six, and for the rest of the game, he looked like he was looking at a mushroom cloud outside his bedroom window. They've got to have some adrenaline and intensity. The complete lack of urgency to run a hurry-up offense on the last TD drive summed it all up. They weren't prepared and didn't know how to respond when they got hit in the mouth. Why is he worried about him chewing gum on the sidelines? Is he Kirk Ferentz 2.0?
It's pretty egregious. It's a chomp.
Does he chomp that bad?
He's getting after it, huh?
Yeah, no, I mean, anytime something bad happens, it's just, you see that right jawbone, just, it's pretty chiseled, so you can see it moving up and down pretty tough. I mean, it's he's not wrong. That's all he does.
That is,
I guess
so
Kirk
funny.
Ferentz is the only Big Ten coach or any coach who's allowed to chew gum on the sidelines 24/7.
What?
Archie Miller? I mean, that was
Kirk Ferentz.
Kirk Ferentz. Yeah, he's a big gum guy. Yeah.
I saw somebody post that, or someone said, "What kind of gum do you think Kirk Ferentz chews?" And it was a picture of melted chiclets that were sitting inside of a console. pretty funny. Speaking of Kirk Ferentz,
what's the oldest
Iowa fans? No, go ahead.
What's the oldest gum possible? Because he started chewing that gum in 1973 and hasn't changed flavors since then. I guarantee, whatever it is.
Probably that bubble tape that you used to get out of the little. I don't even think they sell it anymore. You know what I'm talking about?
You just take a big bite out of it.
That stuff as a kid tasted good, but I bet if I tasted it now, it'd be
it's still
disgusting. Good. Bubble tape?
Yeah, it's still good.
I haven't seen bubble tape in so long. Have you had it recently?
It's not like yesterday, but maybe like within the last 3 to 5 years I've had it.
Maybe I'll have to get my hands on some. Almost said Hubba Bubba. That's something totally different. All right, anyway, we're talking about Kirk Ferentz. Obviously, the Iowa Hawkeyes aren't happy about their situation in Iowa City right now. So here's a message about Kirk and Brian Ferentz, I presume. I know as Iowans, we love our consistency. As a matter of fact, we have a history of loving the incumbent of just about everything. But fellas, it's time to move on. Love you, KF, but we need to let go of you and everything that comes with it and move on. It's okay. We'll give you an epic send-off, and I'll be there cheering, but it's time to move on.
Jeez.
I don't think people realize that 2/3 of Iowa is just fine. It's just their offense that needs to be completely revamped.
Yeah, but it's Ferentz's kid.
Right.
Why do you got? I guess if you're not going to fire your kid, fire the dad first. I mean, is that
that would be my line of thinking? They're probably thinking he's not going to demote because Brian Ferentz is not getting fired. He might get demoted, but the line of thinking there is probably if we don't get rid of Kirk, then Brian's going to continue to run the offense into the ground. And they've scored 14 points, and 4 of those have come off safeties. So,
yeah,
I think they have the worst offense in the country.
I can't imagine that there's anybody that's scoring less per game. Certainly not touchdowns per game, unless I guess a team might be shut out both times.
Hawaii.
Iowa is averaging 7 points per game. But again, if you take away those 4 points, that drops it down to 10. So their offense is averaging 5 points per game. That is the lowest in the country, below New Mexico State at 8.3. How about that?
How about it? Stepping out of the Big Ten for one quick thought. Obviously, did Kansas end up upsetting West Virginia, or were they just beating them?
They won. Kansas won.
Okay. Kansas goes on the road to beat West Virginia. This is the only comment I have to read. I just shattered my iPad. F this. That's it.
That's from a Kansas guy?
West Virginia guy.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, I know that feeling. That's a tough feeling, man. That's what would have been happening to me if Indiana didn't figure it out at halftime.
I'll tell you what, I would be genuinely scared if Indiana scheduled a non-conference home-and-home with Kansas because – and not that I think Kansas is like some powerhouse. They're obviously not, but you just don't want to lose to Kansas.
There's nothing to gain.
Right.
Indiana gains
losing
nothing.
to Kansas it's the equivalent of losing to any Group of 5 team and what it does to your program. It's showing that you have regressed in every way possible, and you've got to do some digging to figure yourself out.
Yeah, for whatever reason, a long time Indiana and Kansas were considered the worst Power 5 teams, and Indiana has kind of left that stratosphere. And you play Kansas, the only thing that could happen is you get back in that box. Beating them twice does nothing for you. Losing to them once does everything that you don't want it to do. That would be about the dumbest thing that Dustin could do in terms of schedule.
And we probably won't ever see it unless Kansas just so happens to join the Big Ten or something, which in that case you would have to play them. But
yeah, right.
Anyway, let's move forward, and then once we finish this up, we'll get into our pick'ems. And just to clarify, if you're listening or watching us right now, you're about 45 minutes in. We're going to streamlined a way to do our pick'ems. If we're just talking about the games, if we're going through the games that are, non-conference opponents that somebody's supposed to beat by 30 or 40, we're just going to do a quick Are they going to cover or not? And that's it. We're moving on. And then we'll discuss a little more with the games that should be close and obviously give our scores and thoughts on the Indiana game, final thoughts on it, and then we'll move on because we don't want to have to sit here for 45 minutes discussing if Minnesota is going to beat New Mexico State by 40 or not. That's not even – I think Wisconsin's playing New Mexico State, not Minnesota, but you get the gist. But Nebraska, obviously we haven't even touched on the fact that Scott Frost has been fired. We've talked about that a lot in Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and surely if you're listening to this later in the week, you know by now that Scott Frost is no longer with Nebraska. But with that has come all sorts of thoughts and reaction and anything that you can think of from the Cornhusker Nation or whatever you want to call their fan base. But some of this happened before the firing, but we got fire this fool tomorrow. This whole thing is toxic. Let's see. Who is meeting me to celebrate? Burn it all. And he put 72nd and Dodge. I found out that's the location of their stadium. So they're wanting to burn down their stadium.
I called that.
He did call that. Week 0, he called it.
Pay back your salaries. Wow, they suck. Trev, you're on the clock now too, bud. 2 to lose, Frost. Pack your bleep and go. Must fire him tomorrow, and I think he will. Well, this person was actually correct. I need to find something that has happened since, because there's been some that have happened. Here we go. Mike Gundy. Possibility? Big 12 is garbage. Proven. Maybe wants to take on a new challenge after all these years. That's a name that I have not heard come up in this coaching search yet, Mike Gundy.
Why? Okay.
Whatever. Yeah. Others be a country, and they're rolling really well. It makes a lot of sense that Mike Gundy would to the middle of Nebraska and take over a dumpster fire. That, yeah, makes total sense.
Nebraska should give Urban Meyer a blank check next weekend and not let him leave the state.
I wouldn't deal with it.
Just offer Urban a package. 5 years loaded with perks and incentives. Have the next Ryan Day on staff to hand off to. He can go sit in the game day studio. He's not coaching, so nothing to interfere with recruiting or keeping things together. Any other coach we get gets poached to death on the recruiting trail. Give who is here a chance to show his mettle. Maybe keep fans engaged.
Let me know when we're through all these, because I have a low-key great hire for Nebraska.
All these, the caption is Urban, Urban, Urban.
I can't wait. I'm interested.
Scott Frost, please come back to UCF. I like that one from the UCF message boards.
He didn't. I don't think he wanted to leave UCF. But I'll talk more about that in a different episode.
Go ahead, Dustin. You said you had a great idea for Nebraska.
I would give serious thought to Deion Sanders. I'm not even kidding on that. I don't think he would go to Nebraska. I don't think he would leave Jackson State to go to Nebraska, which sounds weird, but I don't think he's the kind of guy that wants to live in the Midwest. But he can recruit. I think the NIL would play in his favor. He's like that perfect – he's got like that perfect cockiness to him where I feel like it fits Nebraska. Like, it doesn't seem like it fits Nebraska, but it kind of fits Nebraska.
It's the cockiness that's not going to say how many times they're puking in practice.
It's that. And I feel like there's a cockiness, but he's also going to hold his players accountable.
Yeah.
Like, I legitimately think,
man. They're tough.
And I think that I think he would create a buzz and an excitement about that program. And I'm sorry, this isn't the 80s and 90s anymore. I think now at Nebraska, you have to be a little bit different to win games. I think you can be like a Paul Christ or a Kirk Ferentz and do well there. There's no doubt. But I think if you want to get back into like the national picture, just go for it, man. Just hire Deion Sanders, max chaos in Lincoln. I want to see it.
You know, there was another, it was a betting, I don't know which betting website, and they don't sponsor us, so why should I say them anyway? No one's ever going to sponsor this show. Unless you're Jim Crow and Indiana Sports Beat. totally lost. Oh yeah, the betting website had Ndamukong Kung Su with 25-1 odds to be Nebraska's head coach.
Straight out of no head coaching experience.
Yeah. That's like what I was just going to do at Indiana.
Exactly. Mitchell Page and Ndamukong Kung Su. I'd be so excited to see that.
Yeah, anyway, that would be. I don't even know what that would look like.
One more Nebraska comment. This particular fan has he solved everything. I'm just going to read a few things he said. We were built on the back of hardworking rural kids in the trenches that knew what it was like to spend 10 hours a day throwing hay, carrying buckets of feed and water across farmsteads at a young age, working livestock with every muscle in their body. There is a difference between muscles for go versus muscles for show. If it were up to me, every spot on both lines would be filled by wrestlers.
Okay.
I feel like, am I causing you all to lose brain cells by reading these to you?
I like the wrestler idea. Those guys are tough. They've got great feet and great hands. I just don't. You can't get big, and I don't know. That's just such an interesting. And now the cornfield thing is so played and so old. That's so old school. It's just not the way the world is anymore.
Right.
Just gotta stop living in the past.
I'm not going to read this whole thing, but it won Auburn. So Auburn plays Penn State this week. An Auburn fan believes that Penn State is a softer, weaker version of San Jose State. What in the hell does that mean? You think they're worse than San Jose State?
Well, that's just such a random team to pick. Like, that's like they were just looking at a roster of all the schools that play college football, and they're like, yep, softer version of those. What are they, the Spartans?
They are.
Like their colors?
They are the Spartans.
They did. Yeah. I think Auburn played them last week is why they probably mentioned that.
Oh, okay. I thought that was just
that makes sense.
They just went through,
which would be way funnier.
Like, did the Wheel of Fortune? Like, I'm going to pick this team to compare Penn State to.
Yeah.
All right, last one, and then we'll move into pick'ems. I have to go back to Notre Dame because I forgot this one earlier. Reese is the symptom. Freeman is the disease. Gary Faust part dose. Every single game so far, his team has all but collapsed in the fourth quarter. And there you go. There's your message board comments for week 2 going into week 3.
It's hard to argue the last one.
I think next week, I'm gonna organize them by team instead of just favoriting them and looking through everything so I don't skip stuff like that.
I'll tell you this. I'm excited for the pick'ems because I am sitting outside and it is really hot. And I have a sweatshirt on, and I am just absolutely leaking right now. I don't know if you can tell how sweaty I am, but my face looks like it's just shining. It's all sweaty.
The Charleston humidity is kicking in.
Yeah, I thought I was going to be inside. That girl was back, man. She's taking my spot.
Maybe you should get there early and just place your Indiana football helmet on the table.
Or I could just show up with it on. She would definitely leave.
Get out.
Yeah.
I mean business.
Yeah, okay. So this guy's a psychopath. Time for me to leave.
That is true.
All right, Joe, go ahead and give us the
frightening if you just acted like nothing was happening. Like, hey, how's it going? I guarantee she would leave.
Is it seat taken? Yeah.
Joe, go and give us the updated standings real quick, and then we'll move into the picks.
All right, so pretty handily in first place right now is Mitchell. I mean, he had an absolutely phenomenal week last week. Only one wrong prediction.
Wow.
I think everyone had that one wrong. That was the Wisconsin game.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to remember who they played.
Washington State.
Washington. That's right.
Who
so that was the only
beat Idaho. Just to throw that out there.
Yeah. Let's see. John, you had the second best record overall. You were 10-3. Dustin, you went 9-4, and I went 8-5. So
this includes picking the covers, right? Because we picked covers or not.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Dang, I was 12-1 picking covers too. Come on, boys.
Gambler.
So that leaves us Mitchell 1, John 2, Dustin 3, me 4. So
Mitchell leaps ahead.
Long season.
I mean, we'll I will say I wanted, before we even talked about Nebraska, I was going to give Mitchell a lot of credit because last week he was saying he's going to lose to Georgia State and then he's going to get fired. And that's exactly what happened. Kudos, because that was pretty spot on.
But it kind of messes up. I was hoping that he would at least make it to Indiana because I was going to just pick against them regardless, and now I actually have to think about it.
Ooh. Because it almost feels like there's extra pressure on Indiana to win against the interim head coach. And
I agree. And you never know what was going on in the building, and now they've got some random dude, I don't even know who it is going to be coaching them, and maybe the players like him and they actually play hard. There's still a bunch of talent on the roster. It's a wild card. I don't like it.
Usually these things go one of two ways. It's either like this team rallies and they play really well the rest of the season, or, I mean, it's a complete dumpster fire and they get beat by 25 every game.
Yeah. So we'll pray for the latter.
All right, moving on. Let's get this. We're going to see how quickly we can do this. I bet we can do this in 10 minutes. All right, Michigan versus Connecticut. I'm going to say they don't cover.
Well,
they're a 47.5 point favorite. Okay. They're 47.5 point favorite.
There we go.
Over-under is 59.5, even though we're not doing that.
I say cover.
Cover.
I'm going to go ahead and say Michigan covers as well.
The reason I'm not picking them to cover is because they played 3 easy games in a row. They can't cover all 3. There's no way.
You better hide what that cup says, buddy.
All right. Next up, Nebraska. Excuse me,
Mitchell. Did you say cover or no cover?
Cover.
Cover. Okay.
Next up, Oklahoma at Nebraska. This is one where you can just pick an outright winner. And I'm going to say Oklahoma wins. But I think because of the fact that Scott Frost is not involved in this game, it's going to be a lot closer than it needs to be. They're going to be playing loose, and there's nothing for them to lose. They're playing at home. I still think Oklahoma wins, but I think it's going to be fairly close.
What's the spread?
11.5.
Oh. Oklahoma to cover. Hammer it.
I don't know if you guys have seen, but Mark Whipple calling the plays has not been good. Scott Frost was the reason they were able to beat North Dakota. Their defense is god-awful. I think Oklahoma might win this game by 35. I'm not even trying to be mean. I just think all the changes happen. They'll come out like energetic, and it'll be like 7-7 at the end of the first quarter, and then Oklahoma just steamrolls them. That's what I think will happen.
There's going to be flares in the stadium, I'm telling you. They may not burn the whole place down, but there will be a fire if that happens.
I'll tell you what, if Oklahoma ends up winning this like 63-0 or something completely, obnoxious, it wouldn't surprise me if they do something like that afterward. But
63 would be so bad.
Yeah, I'm going to go Oklahoma, and at least one side of the stadium is going to be defaced. I'm not going to tell you which one that is, but it's going to be one of them. I don't know what's going to be on there, but check Twitter on Saturday and see what it looks like, because I think Nebraska fans are going to do some pretty unbelievable stuff after that one.
Message board comments from Nebraska again next week. So moving on, we have Northwestern facing FCS Southern Illinois. I think they'll cover.
What's the line?
It doesn't show because it's FCS.
Oh, yeah.
So will they win? Is that what we're judging by here?
I guess it's just, I don't know. Just pick them to win. I mean, there's no line, so there's nothing to predict.
We'll just pick them. That's an easy one, I hope.
Yep, I'll pick Northwestern.
Yeah. Northwestern. Victory, hopefully.
No Cats.
Is that the Salukis, Southern Illinois?
Yeah, man.
They gave Indiana.
We almost got beat by them.
Yeah.
First game I ever started. They had a 2-point conversion at the end of the game to win, and we stopped it.
Right.
It was like 59-58.
That was still pre-Tom Allen on the defense, right?
Yeah, I can't remember who was the D coordinator.
Brian Noor before Tom Allen.
Then it must have been him.
Is that correct? Do you remember Brian Noor? Did you play under? I mean, I know you were on defense.
Yeah, I remember him. He was the Air Force guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving forward. Purdue at Syracuse. Purdue is a 1-point favorite right now. This was even earlier today. when I looked at it. But Purdue currently the 1-point favorite. I've got them winning, Purdue.
This is tough. This feels like a game Purdue should win on paper, but they lose. This is tough. I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna pick Syracuse because it's at home.
Yeah, if Syracuse had a ranking by their number or by their name, I think Purdue wins by 2 touchdowns, regardless if Syracuse is actually good or not. But this just feels like a game that Purdue goes in and has 5 turnovers for no reason.
They always have one of those games where you think, they'll win this game, and then they don't. And that's just what it feels like to me for whatever reason.
Yeah, I think Purdue is really good, and they've got a lot of talent on that team, and they have no business losing to Syracuse, which is why I'm going to pick Syracuse.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm gonna hop on that. I'm gonna hop on that bandwagon and go with Syracuse. I just want to say something though. Like I want to get your all's thoughts on this though, because I mean, U of L went into Syracuse and got their butts whooped week 1, and I was just confused because I was watching game day that morning, and they were saying, "Oh, Syracuse such a tough place to play." I'm like, in the Carrier Dome, really? I mean, I don't really get that. Like,
now they did just renovate the Carrier Dome. It's not even called the Carrier Dome anymore. I can't even remember what the sponsor is that has the stadium name, but it's not the Carrier Dome.
Okay. It is the JMA Wireless Dome.
That is it. He's got it.
Yeah.
Regardless, it
used to be a good place to play.
Better battery to life.
Uh-oh, that's me.
New Duracell with power boosting ingredients.
What's happening? Can you hear this?
We got a sponsor. Is it Duracell?
So now we got a sponsor.
Right. We've muted Mitchell. There we go.
I'm back. I'm back. I was on the ESPN thing, and it started playing an ad. I panicked.
All right. Joe, did you give your pick? You said Syracuse, didn't you?
Syracuse, yeah.
I'm setting myself up to either pull ahead or get way behind because I think I've disagreed with
taking the Boilers.
3 things. What'd you say?
You're taking the Boilers, yeah?
I am taking the Boilers. Hesitantly, but I am taking the Boilers.
Yeah.
Next up, Rutgers at Temple. Rutgers is a 17.5-point favorite. I don't think they cover that.
I think they do.
Oh, nice.
Man, I'm going to get destroyed this week.
I don't know.
All 3 of you are agreeing on everything.
I think Rutgers is Mr. What is that guy? The Church of Chop.
Church of Chop.
The Church of Chop is going to be pumped up.
Yep.
Remember, it's on the road.
Yeah. Rutgers has got some talent, man. I don't like it. I hate it. But I think they're pretty tough.
They are tough.
Joe TP?
I mean, the vaunted Temple Owls in that stadium might be rocking. I don't know. Are they playing at the is it the Eagles Stadium? I know they play big games at the Eagles Stadium. I don't know if that's happening this year, but
I thought that was their permanent. I thought that was their permanent location.
I thought that's where they all.
I don't want to watch Temple games, but that's where I've seen them play some games before. So maybe the Chop gets a little scared going into that field, but I don't know. I think let's just go ahead and say they don't cover. I'll go with you, John.
There we go. No covering for Rutgers. Moving forward, a bigger game. It's not my game of the week, but we'll get to that later. Number 22, Penn State at Auburn. Penn State currently 3-point favorites. I think Penn State wins down at down at War Eagle. That's not what their stadium is nicknamed. I don't know what it's called, but I know they yell War Eagle. Jordan Hare. There we go.
Dude, I'm crushing the stadium moves today. Not to brag.
What was the other? Oh yeah, JMA.
I think Penn State wins and covers. I think they showed they got a little bit of a run game. That Nick Singleton guy is really good. If they block for him, as long as Sean Clifford just hangs on to the football, I don't think Auburn's that good. I think Penn State goes in, even though they're a softer, whiter version of whatever of San Jose State or whatever that guy said. I think Penn State wins and starts 3-0.
Mitchell?
Yeah, I'm taking the Auburn Tigers. I think they win outright. Not really based on anything, but that's just what
Joe?
I like Penn State's defense a lot. I think it's got a lot of talent on it. I think they need to play within their boundaries, though, because I think a lot of those dudes think they're better than they actually are. But if they just play the way they actually know how they can, I think they'll be fine. I mean, Auburn, obviously, the crowd's going to be a factor, but give me the Nittany Lions.
All right, we got 4 what I think should be quick ones here. Minnesota takes on Colorado at home. They're 27.5-point favorites. I think they cover.
Colorado stinks. Minnesota will cover.
Colorado, I think, has the worst rating of Power 5 teams. So
they're bad.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind. Mr. Joe Lincoln, I know you're writing numbers down. There you go.
Winning cover.
All right, next up. Wisconsin hosts New Mexico State, 37.5-point favorites. I do think Wisconsin will cover that spread.
Minnesota won 38-0. Yeah, I think they'll cover.
Me too. I think they got to get some payback, some retribution. They're going to try to pile it on.
I think they win. I don't think they cover.
Uh-oh. Next up, Ohio State playing Toledo. They are only 30. I say only as if that's not a lot. They're 32-point favorites versus Toledo. Toledo's 2-0. I do think Ohio State will cover that 32-point spread, though.
I mean, that offense is god-awful, apparently. Yeah, but I still think Ohio State covers against Toledo.
Yeah, in-state schools, you got to bury them if you're Ohio State. They cover.
Yeah, they win and cover.
Next up, Nevada at Iowa. Iowa is a 23.5-point favorite. I don't know how they're going to score 23.5 points. I think they'll win this game, but I don't think they cover that.
Nevada's not very good. I'm picking Nevada to cover. If Iowa somehow covers, I'll do this show shirtless next week. I don't know how they're going to get 23 points.
You want me to write that?
Yeah, right.
Put us both down. Both down. We'll do the pick them shirtless.
Come on, I mean, do we want to cheer for that or not? I mean, John, I don't know.
I'm wearing a shirt
for them to win or not.
You guys decide what you want, but that's happening. I don't think they get to 23.5, let alone cover that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
3 more games.
They're winning. They're not covering.
Watch. They're going to have 4 defensive touchdowns, special teams,
right in our face. Right in our face.
Yep.
SMU at Maryland. Maryland's only 3.5-point favorites. SMU's 2-0. I looked at their schedule earlier today, but I already forgot who they played. But when I wrote down my pick earlier today, I chose SMU to win this game. So I'm taking the Mustangs.
You know what's – yeah. So Maryland is better, but they're not as good as I thought. They haven't been quite as impressive as I thought that they've been, even though they've blown out both of their opponents. So
they had to take a while to blow out Charlotte, though. They ended up blowing them out, but they hung in there for a little while.
And they didn't exactly put their foot on the throat against Buffalo. So I am going to go with SMU in this one as well.
Mitchell?
Yeah. So Maryland's played North Texas, beat them 48-10. Or not Maryland. SMU's played North Texas, beat them 48-10. And then they played Liberty, I think. Lamar. Just kidding. Lamar, and they beat them 45-16. So they put together some impressive performances. I'm still going to take Maryland because Jeffrey the Grink tells me that they're good, and I still don't believe him. But I'm going to listen to him, and I'll probably pay for it.
All right, Joe.
Yeah, I like Maryland in that game. I don't know. I think I would love to see Taulia have one good game in his collegiate career that he doesn't, crap the bed in. So let's just see if he can do it. I don't know.
Well, that's how you really feel. Wow.
All right, time to pick the Indiana WKU game before we get to our game of the week. This is one where we will give our scores for as well. I do think that Indiana is going to look much better in this game. I don't know that we're going to see a complete performance just yet, but I think we're going to see improvement in terms of, we're not going to see a tale of two halves. Indiana's going to do just enough throughout the entire game to do what they need to do to win. I think they win 31-21.
I hate the 6.5 point covers or the lines because it's a touchdown, and I hate those. I'm gonna go. I think Indiana's defense is better. What'd you say, John? 31-21?
Yes, sir.
I think it's going to be higher scoring than that. I'm going to say 41-34 Indiana wins by a touchdown, so they cover. But I don't like that line. Stinks.
Yeah, I was very close. I've got 38-34 in my head, Hoosiers. And I think it's going to take a late game drive to either seal the game when you're winning 38-34 or kind of come from behind touchdown. I don't think this is one where either team really gets away from the other. I think they're pretty evenly matched, to be totally honest.
Joe, the law firm.
Yeah, I'm going to go IU. I'm going to be pretty close to Dustin here. I'm going to go 41-31. I think 10 points is, it's still going to be a close game, and I think WKU is probably going to make a run later in the game, like in the fourth quarter. I think we see kind of a collapse again, but not a full collapse. So they'll hold up, but it's still going to be close.
Okay. All right. Big Ten team game of the week. Number 11 Michigan State travels to Washington to take on Michael Penix and Kalen DeBoer in where the Huskies are 3.5-point favorites. I have chosen Washington to upset the Spartans in this game. And this is not saying anything bad about Michigan State. I think they've looked very impressive in their first two games. I just think that from what I know and what we know about what Kalen DeBoer can do with an offense with Michael Penix and what he's done with them before when they played Michigan State when he was at Indiana, and the fact that they're at home, Michigan State has traveled out west, I've got the Huskies winning this one.
Dang, I thought it was going to be unique in this one. I'm also taking Washington. I have some serious concerns about Michigan State's passing attack. I think their run game is really good. I don't know how good they are defensively. Akron is not a good football team, so you didn't really learn anything from that game last week. Western Michigan, they gave up some yards. They didn't give up a ton of points, but they gave up quite a few yards. And I think a Kalen DeBoer offense will be able to move the football. So I think this is going to be a really good football game. I think Washington wins. We're not giving a score on this one, are we?
No, you can give one if you want.
No, I would just sound like an idiot. So I'm going to go Washington gets the upset and starts 3-0. Michigan falls to 2-1, or Michigan State falls to 2-1.
I thought I was going to be unique too. I want Washington. I'm going to pick Washington because I want IU fans' brains to just absolutely melt and start thinking about, what could have been with Michael Penix when we saw what was with Michael Penix. And they're just living in 2020 again. I would like to see Penix come out and just absolutely torch the Spartans, and I think it's possible. It's what I want to happen. I'm choosing with my heart this time, maybe rather than my head. So yeah, go Huskies.
All right. I guess I'll be the unique one. I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm in last place in the pick, so I got to make up some points here, and I'm going to play that way. Also, I'm going to trust that Michigan State's hiring department and their higher-ups knew what they were doing when they gave Mel Tucker that unbelievable contract last year. So I'm going to go ahead and roll with the Spartans and say they go on the road and get a big win. So let's go ahead and go with that one.
I love it.
Well, there you have it. Still kind of a lengthy episode, but these will obviously get a lot shorter once we don't have 13, 14 games every week, and then we're in the middle of the conference schedule. But thanks for listening as always. Be sure to listen and watch Indiana Sports Beat Radio on YouTube or WREF Monday through Friday. Jim Coyle on every day, and obviously Mitchell Page with us on Fridays. Dustin Schutte with us just about every day. So we'll see you again next time. Thanks for listening in as always. Well, we don't have an as always. We'll talk to you next time.
I'm so